operations usually require a succession of open sewage ponds, also known as lagoons, open-air cesspools, or manure pits, to hold the waste of dozens or hundreds of animals. These trenches release deadly methane, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen sulfide gas, killing a few dozen farmers each year. I experienced this around age 8. I smelled sulfur while going between a hog finishing barn and an open sewage pond on a warm, low-wind day. As I fell forward, I remember a single second of consciousness loss. I started my NDE on the grass I landed on. I was 30 to 40 feet above the ground, looking down. I can precisely measure its height because a utility or telephone pole was many yards in front of me. Many days later, I wondered, how did I climb that telephone pole? I fell from the sky. I saw a black hole near the green grass below as I dropped, falling toward the pit. It felt too little. As I approached the pit, I fell further. No ground to hit. I felt like I had penetrated a veil as I fell through the tiny, dark hole into a tunnel. The tunnel was black and growing as I dropped into it quickly. I wasn't moving toward any light like others. I looked back to the tunnel entrance. My childishness disappeared, and I became more mature in my thinking. I knew I had been on this voyage before, died, and was returning to my wiser self. I got several downloads during this tunnel experience, some of which I still forget. I recall the situation but not the knowledge I was acquiring, which hurts. I recollect feeling like this life I just left was a game. Several approaches to play the game were better than others. I thought, gosh, I wish I could do that life over. How could I forget? If I remember to live that way, how far could I go? In these tunnel trip memories, I regretted my poor performance as an 8-year-old. It was a happy-go-lucky bummed. After slowing down, I entered a room with panoramic screens. It looked like numerous TVs joined together. This started a brief life review. I was perplexed by mostly seeing my mother and sister. It felt like I was seeing the time, location, and scenario from a different aspect in the room. I saw déjà vu from a new angle this time. My life assessment was deep and heartbreaking, not bodily discomfort. I felt my mother and sister's emotions and how my youthful comments affected them. Shame, regret, remorse, jealousy, and misery magnified by 1,000. My feelings intensified. I could no longer handle such emotions. I desperately wanted it to end. Those awful human emotions vanished. The ache vanished instantly. I felt cleansed and I was tossed back into that dark hole. Now I was in a blissful free fall. I've never felt that relief on earth. I wandered through a meadow from here. I know this site, loved it, despite never seeing this anyplace else. This meadow was one of my favorites. However, I remembered walking in these fields and clear air earlier. Like a long trek home. First time I realized my direction during this encounter. Today, 30+ years later, I'm sorry that I can't remember more of the meadow and my delight there. I don't know where the field took me. It was a huge hall or room. My relatives and forefathers were here. They were arranged like bleachers along a basketball court. I knew them all. Some appeared older and matriarchal or patriarchal. Many of them and I talked as we walked. Again, I cannot name any of these folks I knew. This may be because I had never died in my 8-year life. I recall 1 or 2 talks with a known woman. Have you talked to him yet? I laughed and said, "Nah, he knows I'm going back." This may seem odd, but I think it was about God or a god. God appeared to my right as a bright light in my event. No human or Jesus-like appearance of him appeared. I was conversing with others when I said, "Yeah, I'm going back." I nodded since I knew going back would be hard. My only memory of this great hall and ancestor experience is that. Finally, I was in a smaller room in a vast structure. Greek-style columns and white marble adorned the building. I met a romantic twin flame partner here. We talked extensively, and I remember telling her we'd be gone for a time. I would return to my body, and she would not reincarnate for a while. We knew our earthly lifetimes wouldn't cross, but she'd be younger than me. After saying farewell, she understood I had work. I want to recall more of her and this part of my NDE, but I can't. I don't know if I'll meet this individual in life. However, it has made dating interesting, and I occasionally laugh when I meet someone younger. I was alive and on that grass. My NDE ended. Nobody found or saw me unconscious on the ground that day. I came to myself. Dazed, I stood up and walked 50 yards to our house. That was the first time I looked up at the telephone pole on my way back, wondering how I had climbed up there to look down. This NDE was never mentioned to my parents or anyone else. I was 8 and didn't get it. Not till my 30s did I understand the experience. As memories returned in waves, you remember much of it. The term NDE and the existence of these experiences were new to me. Many NDE survivors want to stay on the other side or never return. After my NDE, I would lie on the same lawn patch when my parents were gone for weeks. I closed my eyes and tried to return there. For whatever reason, I suppressed most of the experience after that. I wouldn't even walk near the farm area. For some reason, I was afraid of it burying the memories deeper. After the NDE, I had severe dreams for weeks. These intense, out-of-body dreams were sometimes terrifying. They faded, as did many NDE recollections. Today's experience concludes. Please remark below as always.